60 miles from the Pacific Ocean, close to the Multnomah Falls of the Columbia River Gorge and beneath the majestic gaze of Mount Hood, Portland International Raceway hosts round 9 of the FedEx Championship Series. Hello and welcome from Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw to the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200, presented by Texaco Haviland on an absolutely glorious day that has seen the spectators flooding in since around 7 o'clock this morning. It doesn't look as though we'll have a repeat of last year's rain, but Jeremy, I don't think that's going to matter too much. We're set for an absolutely tremendous race.
Great atmosphere at this racetrack. Very knowledgeable fans up in the northwest here. They love their motor racing and they've come here in force this afternoon, and I think they're going to be well rewarded.
Well, it's going to be a tough race, 98 laps of this 2-mile track. Let's take a look at this starting grid. Brian Herter on pole position, his 5th career pole, a new track record by over 1 second. Dario Franchitti had pole from Friday, was beaten in yesterday's qualifying, looking to beat his 2nd place finish in Long Beach. Scott Pruitt and Jimmy Vasser are on the 2nd row. Scott Pruitt had pole here last year. Jimmy Vasser felt he could have gone even faster if qualifying hadn't been shortened.
Row 3 of the grid. On the inside, Alex Zanardi. 2 years ago, he won here from the pole. Adrian Fernandez, he's already a winner this season in Motegi, Japan. On row 4 of the grid, on the inside, Christian Fittipaldi, a rainmeister, wonderful in the wet. I don't think he's going to have his opportunity to shine in the wet this afternoon, though. Bobby Rahal on the outside of row 4. He had an engine blow up this morning. He switched to the backup car. That is the car he will start the race in.
Next up on row 5, Gilles de Ferran. Twice he's been 2nd at this track, and last year by the tiniest of margins. Alongside him, Michael Andretti, a 3-time winner here in Portland, but the last time was back in 1992. Row 6 sees Patrick Carpentier, fast in unofficial practice, but he lost out in qualifying, and Tony Kanaan, who's 2nd in the Rookie of the Year contest by just 2 points.
On row 7, Michel Jourdain Jr., his best qualifying performance of the season. The end of last year, he was great. Beginning of this season, it's taken him a while to get going. But alongside him, Greg Moore. He has been strong every race this season, but struggled in qualifying here at Portland International Raceway. On row 8 of the grid, Mauricio Guzman and Mark Blundell, the 2 Pac West cars. The cars are based in Indianapolis. The race team has its heart set in the Pacific Northwest.
Andre Ribeiro is back on row 9. He won his first ever race in the United States in an Indy Lights race here in 1994. Alonso Jr. alongside him, like Michael Andretti, a 3-times winner on this track. On row 10, Helio Castro Neves, another Goodyear tyre runner who's been struggling for performance this weekend. Alongside him is Paul Tracy. He was banned from qualifying after a crash on Friday. He's out to make good from 20th.
On row 11, the 2 Arciero Wells cars, Robbie Gordon, Max Papis. They're still behind the pace of the Honda, Ford and Mercedes engines, but Toyota is definitely making ground. On row 12, on the inside, Richie Hearn. He's been struggling to find a balance this weekend on the Budweiser Swift. Alongside him, JJ Leto. The car was awful on Friday. It's gradually getting better, and he feels he has a good race car.
We're down to the last 2 rows. Row 13 sees the German driver Arndt Meyer. Alongside him is PJ Jones, racing beneath the watchful eye of Father Parnelli this weekend. And on the final row of the grid, Alex Barron, who was unlucky to lose an engine in qualifying, and Dennis Vitolo, who didn't make it out in qualifying, the final qualifying session, after he had an engine problem in the morning. So there are our 28 cars, all lined up, ready to go. The next time they come over the start-finish line, this race will be underway for 98 laps. Let's take a quick look at the track. This Portland International Raceway start-finish leads into the festival curves, and that could be a dangerous spot.
Yeah, that's where all the action is going to be this afternoon. A long straightaway leading into that very, very tight right-hander, and at the start of the race particularly, a recipe for disaster. But the next sequence of corners there, turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a flowing sequence of right and left-handers. Great fun to watch around there. These cars are pulling 4 Gs through those turns, and they're producing around about 5,000 pounds worth of downforce. That's 3 times the weight of these cars.
Let's take a look there. You can see a 98-lap race. The pole sitter Brian Herter, as I mentioned, his 5th career pole, but he still hasn't won that all-important first race. He's been very fast all weekend. He was fastest in testing when they were here some weeks ago, and that was pretty impressive when he came out yesterday and put in that time of 58.3 seconds. Just looking through the onboard cameras, we saw Alex Zanardi there a moment ago. This is looking back from Gilles de Ferran. He starts on the 5th row of the grid. He's had a couple of second-place finishes here in the past. On board there with Bobby Rahal as well. He's got an onboard camera this weekend. Bobby had a bit of an up and down weekend so far. He starts on the 4th row of the grid alongside Christian Fittipaldi. And Bobby, another former winner of this race in 1987, quite a long time ago. There's Richie Hearn. He's not been going so well. He was well up in Detroit, remember, but here he's qualified down in 23rd place. And the Swift chassis generally, both his car and the ones of Michael and Christian Fittipaldi, they seem quite stiff and not really as responsive as the drivers would like. There is our pole man though, Brian Herter, as he leads them round now, ready to get this race underway. There is Dario Franchitti alongside him. Remember that Alex Zanardi, the championship leader, is starting from the 3rd row of the grid. Remember also that Greg Moore, his main rival, is way down in 14th place. He's on the 7th row of the grid. We're getting ready to start here at Portland. Brian Herter with the advantage as they go across the line. The green flag waves and away they go. Brian Herter with the advantage. Franchitti trying to defend that 2nd place. Someone's locking up on the inside. Oh,
Greg Moore. That was Greg Moore flying down the inside there. A silly move. He T-bones there, Christian Fittipaldi. All that. It's Michael Andretti there.
Michael Andretti in trouble right at the start. Greg Moore as well. Moore perhaps trying to make up for that bad qualifying performance. There's Robbie Gordon. He's been involved in it too. And there's Michael. That's who we saw on board with Michael Andretti. And would you believe it, his season just gets worse and worse and worse.
With no suspension on it.
Just listen to his radio.
Thanks, sir. I got a hit. I don't know how bad it is. I got to get a push start.
Being asked by the team how much damage has been done. Of course, Michael really not very aware, but Christian's out as well. And look at Paul, he's out. There's Greg Moore. There's an argument going on between Christian Fittipaldi and Greg Moore on the right-hand side of your picture. Paul Tracy can't believe it. It's been a disastrous weekend for him. Banned from qualifying after the accident on Friday. Let's take a look here, Jeremy.
Yeah, you can see the 2 players' cars there back in the pack. And I think you'll find it's Greg Moore just comes flying down the inside here. There he goes, jinking to the inside across the nose of Michel Jourdain Jr. What he thinks he's doing, I've absolutely no idea. You're not going to be able to pass half a dozen cars in that corner, which is what he apparently seems to be trying to do. T-bones Christian Fittipaldi, who is in turn punched into Michael Andretti. Both Newman Haas cars out on the spot.
Well, that was amazing, wasn't it? Just to see Mark Blundell got tied in it as well. He had to go across the grass. Robbie Gordon there, he was quite late and spun around as he tried to get himself going once more. Several cars involved in that, and well, we just have to wait and see whether they survive. Blundell's gone past us. There we see Greg Moore shooting across to the insides, flying down straight over the curb, straight into Michael. And Christian Fittipaldi there was just trying to get past at the same time. Then Paul Tracy comes around and just runs into the back of them. There's nowhere to go.
Absolutely nowhere to go. The track was completely blocked for Paul Tracy then, and he was totally blamed. Here is on board Michael Andretti's car. We're coming up for the green flag now. Michael is on the outside of row 6 on the grid, and he's actually on row 5. But here we are going down to the first corner. He's on the outside line now. He's looking pretty clean so far. That is Bobby Rahal in his inside and Adrian Fernandez in front of him. And there was Christian Fittipaldi's car come in from the right, who has been hit by Greg Moore. And well, here we are on board also now with Bobby Rahal.
Yeah, it's actually Christian who got hit by Moore. Look, you watch it here. There's Christian locking up, getting down the inside, but he gets in okay, and then Moore arrives out of nowhere and just launches himself into the Brazilian's car, and it's all over for both Newman Haas cars. Well, we'll have to see whether Michael, his car might have survived. There wasn't heavy contact, but look at Paul Tracy. He cannot believe what's been going on this weekend. Started down in 20th. Nothing he could do there. There really wasn't any room. Brian Herter leads after 1 lap has been completed under yellow. Welcome back to the action at Portland International Raceway, and certainly, well, we expected some possible dramas at that first corner, but boy, we really saw some dramas. Greg Moore trying to do the absolute impossible and trying to get into the top 5, I think, by the time that they came out of the first corner, having started down in 14th place. A ridiculously optimistic manoeuvre. We might get a chance to hear from him in a moment. We'll just have to see. Michael Andretti, meanwhile, is coming into the pits here.
He's already 1 lap down, and in actual fact, if he comes in here, unless he can get out quickly, he's going to lose another lap as well. So he's pretty much out of contention already. What a shame.
Just a reminder, it is Father's Day today in America and around the world, and we're looking back at some of the action that's happened here in the past. Festival turns incidents, we've seen quite a few in the past years. We saw Mansell just a few moments ago locking up in 93. Other incidents that have occurred included Michael Andretti hitting Brian Herter, and last year we saw Alonso Jr. and Dario Franchitti making contact with one another in the rain. So it's certainly been responsible for a good many incidents in the past. Here's a replay of what's just happened. Greg Moore leaping over the curb, launching himself into Christian Fittipaldi, and cars off as a result just about everywhere. So it really has been a tricky start to this race. Michael Andretti comes out. Let's hear from Greg Moore now.
What happened? Do you have any idea?
I mean, it was just a huge bottleneck down there, and I'd made a really good start. I'd passed a couple guys in the start, and I went right down to the inside, and I got down there, and it was just amazing how slow it was down there, and just you know, kind of a mistake on my part, just misjudging how slow the start would be down in there, and you know, just you know, I feel bad for Christian. He was going to have a good race, and for Paul, but you know, my mistake.
How concerned were you going in that something like this might happen?
I was a little bit concerned about it, but you know, I had such a good start, and you know, it looked like it was nice, and you know, it wasn't packed up. It looked like everyone was kind of apart from each other, and we went breaking into there, and next thing I knew, I mean, I didn't go in as hard as I've been going in all weekend, and it's just everyone had just completely stopped. So it was just one of those things that you know, I feel bad.
Greg, you say you feel bad for Christian and for Paul. Do you go talk to them about this scenario?
Yeah, I already talked to Paul and Christian on, you know, on our walk back, and you know, I told Christian, hey, I'm sorry I made a mistake, and Paul said, you know, you okay? And I said, yeah. He says, well, good thing.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, a pretty sad day for all three of them. There's a lot at stake, of course, particularly for Greg Moore, with second place in the championship at the moment, 16 points ahead of Jimmy Vasser. He's not going to score any here today. Christian Fittipaldi was the leading Goodyear runner in this race as well, so he was feeling pretty good. Look at all those cars involved in that crash, the whole list of them up there. And, well, we're just going to have to hope that when they get this race underway, which they're about to do again, that we get a bit of clean-up racing. It's Brian Herter who leads them as they come across the line. This is to complete 4 laps, most of which has been run under yellow. Let's see how sensible they are into the corner this time. There's a bit of battling going on further back. Both Herter and Franchitti have got in safely. De Ferran gets in just ahead of Bobby Rahal, slightly further down the order, and it does look as though everybody's made it through reasonably safely on this occasion. Down at the back, one of the Penske's quite a long way down the list, that's Alonso Jr., but Brian Herter leads, and we're away, we're under green flag conditions, and we're racing.
Yeah, it was finally, we got a clean start underway there. You know, back to Greg Moore, at least he had the grace to admit his mistake there. It certainly was a crazy move. He should know that the inside of the racetrack down there under braking for the festival course is very, very dirty. It's just not a section of track that is used. He's got cold tires on top of that, so he said he went in there slower than before. Well, I should hope so. I mean, otherwise he wouldn't even have got as close as he did. And he was probably going 30 miles an hour faster than Christian Fittipaldi, so a surprising error really from Greg Moore.
Well, here we go, coming around to complete another lap. Brian Herter with the advantage over Franchitti, but he's not pulling away at all. These two seem very evenly matched at the moment. The Team Rahal car of Herter with the Ford Cosworth power and the Firestone tyres being chased by Franchitti's Team Green version, which has Honda power, remember, and the same Firestone tyres. It really does seem this weekend as though Firestone have the edge over Goodyear. We really haven't got any Goodyear runners up very far. The furthest they've got is 7th place for Gilles de Ferran. So at the moment, unless they really have a consistent race tyre, it looks as though Goodyear are having a tough time. Now, that incident that we saw taking out a number of very important drivers in championship terms and in terms of possible race victories as well. Christian Fittipaldi, one of those who always goes well here. He came close to winning this race last year in those wet, dry conditions. Let's hear from Christian Fittipaldi after that incident.
After the Newman Haas pit, Greg Moore told us that he already had a chance to apologize to you, but I'm sure apologies pretty hollow right now.
Well, it's easy to say sorry afterwards. I just think that Greg was maybe a little bit over-optimistic. Like, he was starting 14th. I was in 7th. I didn't lose any position at the start. I definitely don't see how a guy can go from 14th to 7th on the 4th corner. And apparently of what they told me, the accident had developed already, and he only ended up landing on top of me. So go to the next race, there's not a lot to say. I'm very disappointed because we're going through a very difficult period at the moment. I can't even finish the races. It's been very hard. We're competitive, but I can't do the races. I don't know what happened.
This was after a crew had to scramble to change an engine following this morning's session. Bob?
So Christian Fittipaldi really having a tough time of it at the moment. Up front, though, Brian Herter is controlling this race in its early stages. 6 laps completed, 6.5 laps now as they come around the backside of the track, and Dario Franchitti still holding on to 2nd. Scott Pruitt is in 3rd. Alex Zanardi is in 4th place. Jimmy Vasser, his teammate, is in 5th position. Then Adrian Fernandez 6th. Gilles de Ferran is in 7th. Tony Kanaan in a good 8th place, ahead of Bobby Rahal in 9th, and 10th place for Richie Hearn. Oh, JJ's in trouble. JJ Leto down at turn number 4. There's smoke coming from the back of his car, from underneath the engine cover, and the Finn, who he's been struggling here this weekend, really has been off the pace. They finally got a better setup for it in yesterday's practice. Didn't qualify particularly well, felt more confident for the race today, but obviously it's all over for JJ Letton. I think this will probably be a weekend that he'd prefer to forget.
I think it would indeed. It has been a torrid time for him all weekend long, and such a shame. He's worked so hard, and the team certainly, they were out to lunch on Friday, but he was pretty happy with the way that car had been handling both in final qualifying yesterday. Even though he was way back on the grid, he was certainly a lot better than it had been earlier on, and at least allowed him to get into some kind of a rhythm on this racetrack, but not to be once again for JJ Letton.
Let me just tell you that this morning's warm-up, we didn't see too much incident, but Mark Blundell was one of the fastest, in fact the fastest out there in the warm-up. He's down in 16th position at the moment. We'll try and keep an eye on whether he makes progress, but remember, he was one of the drivers to go across the gravel on that original start. Let's hope that hasn't damaged the under tray to his car. They are pretty vulnerable underneath the cars. If something gets taken away underneath, one of the fences underneath, that really can change the handling. So let's hope that Mark Blundell managed to escape that safely without damage. You're watching at the moment Adrian Fernandez, who's lying in 6th place, and he's chasing after Jimmy Vasser. Everybody at the moment beginning to just settle down, beginning to pace the laps fairly consistently. 1 minute 2.0 that last lap for Brian Herter. So he's just about 0.3 of a second faster than Dario Franchitti, who's chasing in 2nd place. Well, we've heard from Greg Moore, we've heard from Christian Fittipaldi, another driver who went out in that first corner accident, who was also having a weekend that he'd really like to get as quickly as possible, is Paul Tracy. Remember, he crashed with Michel Jourdain on Friday. That was after he was already racing on probation after an incident in Detroit where he hit Fittipaldi. Let's hear from him now.
Exactly what you alluded to and what you were worried about after your penalty.
Well, these are the things that you get caught up in when you have to start at the back, but you know, I really couldn't see what happened. All I know is when I got to the first corner, there was cars in the air, and I basically got swept out by the other cars, and was committed to where I was at on the track, and you know, there was an accident right there, so really had nowhere to go. So it's disappointing for the Cool team, because we had a great car today and had a great car all weekend. It's shown in how Dario's run. We haven't had a chance to run, so you know, hopefully he can hold down the fort for us and get a win.
Let's go back for a moment to the letter that you sent out to the CART community and brought up this point about an even-handed distribution of rules and regulations. What do you think about this situation?
Well, like I said, I didn't see what happened, but it's obviously somebody's fault because there was cars in the air, so I'd like to see if something gets done about it. I'd be frustrated.
Bob?
Well, that's an interesting point from Paul Tracy. He had the penalty imposed on him after the incident in Detroit. Surely Greg Moore is going to impose some sort of penalty. Brian Herter leads from Dario Franchitti. So plenty here already. Brian Herter leading this race from Dario Franchitti, but we're under yellows. There's been another incident, and this time it involves Adrian Fernandez and this man, Jimmy Vasser. The two of them have just taken each other off at the same corner again, the festival curves. Adrian Fernandez was going for 5th position, got down the inside here, not quite alongside, but certainly there enough to make his presence felt. Jimmy Vasser turned in, Fernandez on the curb. I just feel there, Jeremy, they could have just given each other a bit more room.
You know, the peripheral vision on these cars really is not terribly good. They do have convex mirrors, so there is more peripheral vision than there used to be. But, you know, these cockpit sides on these cars are pretty high to try and keep the wheels up from intruding into the cockpit. And that makes sideways vision awfully difficult. And at that point on the racetrack, these sort of accidents just tend to happen.
So Brian Herter still leading this one, Dario Franchitti in 2nd position, and Scott Pruitt in 3rd, Alex Zanardi in 4th. Those four have survived so well. So good so far for those four, but everyone else really been in the wars. But what it has meant is quite a few place changes. There's Jimmy Vasser in the pits having attention after that incident with Adrian Fernandez. Quite a few people have moved up the order, haven't they, Jeremy?
They certainly have. Richie Hearn, who started way back on the grid, he was back on the 12th row of the grid. He is now up into 8th position, and holding his own he was there as well, running very well indeed. Another guy who's running extremely well is Arndt Meyer in the Lola. He started back in 25th position, and he is now running 11th. Those two, that incident there between Fernandez and Vassar moved him up another 2 places, but again, he was running very well indeed, ahead of Helio Castroneves, Andre Ribeiro, Mark Blundell, some good guys, and running as fast as they were as well. Good job by Arndt Meyer.
The lights are out on the pace car, so they should be coming around to take the restart in just a moment. Alex Zanardi still survives there in 4th position, just biding his time perhaps at the moment. This track is one that they have to watch the fuel consumption a bit, but we've got a few yellows already. This will help them on the way to their first stop. It will mean that they can extend how many laps they do to the first stop. So this should be able to help them quite considerably. There, just look at the field summary at the moment. Herder, Franchitti, Pruitt, Zanardi, De Ferran up to 5th now. Canaan in 6th. That's a good effort. Ahead of Rahal, Hearn, as you mentioned, Carpentier. But we're going green flag racing once again here. So Brian Herter leads on the green flag from Dario Franchitti. Zanardi defending his 4th place from Gilles De Ferran as they come down into festival curves. And Robbie Gordon is off the road. Robbie Gordon by the side of the track on the grass, and that was even before we got to the green flag. The race has just restarted under green. Herter leads from Franchitti, but somehow Gordon's ended up on the grass.
Yeah, in turn 9, before, as you say, before the green flag though, so that's a little bit embarrassing. He was towards the end of the field. In any case, he was back in 19th position, and not quite sure what happened, but certainly the car, I think, is beached over there on the grass, and I believe the caution flags are coming out once again. Indeed they are, so that's the 3rd time this afternoon already the caution flags will fly.
Yeah, it's getting a bit fragmented this, isn't it? Shame. Brian Herter making good restarts each time, and now the yellows have come out once more, so he's going to have to back off and let the field bunch up. In fact, he made a tremendous restart there, although I think Dario had already backed off. He's into the pits now. Interesting. They've completed how many laps? 13 laps so far. This is only about halfway into their pit window, I would say, but Brian Herter decided to come in. Franchitti stays out, Pruitt stays out, so does Zanardi. So a little bit of a tactical ploy here from Team Rahal, and they decide to make the pit stop. Interesting choice.
Very interesting choice, you know, and I think several car teams know that it is fairly marginal here on fuel, and the Shell Team Rahal crew obviously is amongst them. They think they're going to have to make 3 stops in this race. That's why they're bringing in Herder now for a splash and go. They know that Jimmy Vassar already has been in because of his incident, of course, and several other cars also came in under this caution right now, but that's going to lose valuable track position for Brian Herder, and he's now going to have to hope that there aren't too many yellows in this for the remainder of this race that will enable these other guys to take advantage of the track position as it stands right now. So it's really too early to say whether or not that's a good or a bad call, but it's certainly an interesting call, and it's certainly interesting that the other leaders, most of them, chose not to make a pit stop.
That's right, and it seems like a pretty quick decision for them to come in. So interesting one this. Dario Franchitti now leads. It looks as though they will actually restart. There's a very short yellow flag period here, and they will be restarting as they come round this time. So Franchitti ahead at the moment of Scott Pruitt and Alex Zanardi, with Gilles De Ferran now up to 4th, with Brian Herter having rejoined. He's rejoined in 11th place, so it really was a splash and dash. He still got out in front of quite a few of the cars out there. But here we go, ready for the restart. And Dario Franchitti comes round to lead the race here at Portland. He'll come across the line first as 15 laps go into the book and 83 laps remain. It's a hard physical race. Watch for Gilles De Ferran in the background, making a little move on Alex Zanardi, which Zanardi defended by just moving over to the middle of the road. Didn't need to hold it too tight. De Ferran decided to tuck in behind him once again. But it is a very hot day here today. Talking to Dario Franchitti last night, he was telling me that this corner here, this is where they're pulling over 4G, and it's for about 6 seconds that they're pulling it as well. He said it's very tough on the neck, very tough on the forearms. He said when they were testing here a couple of months ago, when in fact there seemed to be more grip in the track, he said he could actually feel his forearm muscles pulling. He could feel them wrenching, and he felt very stiff the next day. Sheer effort of getting around those first few corners.
more at the limit of the driver than the car, which really is remarkable. But I think in the race conditions they weren't pulling quite the same G-forces as they are in qualifying and really going for that ultimate fast like they were in testing. But nevertheless, it's certainly a very physical race this at Portland International Raceway, and it's a hot day as well, so these drivers are in for a beating this afternoon.
That's right. They've had a few breaks already, but hopefully we'll get a few laps together now as Brian Herter leads them. Well, sorry, not Brian Herter. Brian Herter's still down in 11th place, 12th place in fact after his pit stop. Franchitti leads them by just 1.2 seconds from Scott Pruitt. There is the man who's gained so much on this opening segment of the race. Started way back down on the grid in 23rd position, and now look at him, Richie Hearn lying in 7th place. Drove, well, he's driven well on a last few occasions, in fact. Unlucky in Detroit. He had a turbo failure after qualifying in 4th place. But remember, he finished in 6th place in Milwaukee, and he had a 7th place finish in Rio as well.
Very, very good effort indeed. Certainly John Della Penna's team is far from the best funded in this field, despite the fact Budweiser, of course, a major name in this sport. But it's not that big a budget on his team, and Richie Hearn doing a super job this afternoon, just taking advantage of those instants ahead of him. And they're right behind the Budweiser car. You just got a flash of yellow. That is Arndt Meyer in the Lola in 8th place.
Great effort this. Well, we've seen several cars off. The latest incident was Jimmy Vasser, who has rejoined. Jimmy's running in 14th position, but the other one in that was Adrian Fernandez. We've got him in the pit lane to listen to.
Adrian Fernandez, tell us about the incident with Jimmy Vasser.
Well, you know, a few times I was trying to pass him and I wasn't close enough, and this time I thought I was close enough, and I just dived in the inside, and you know, I was already committed, and you know, he didn't open the gap, and we just, you know, just have an incident. It's one of those goals.
We've seen an unusual amount of contact early in this race. Do you think we're going to see this all afternoon?
Well, maybe it's a coincidence. You know, here my car was really working well, and I was just a little bit faster than Vasser, and I was just trying to not lose the gap between him and the next group of guys. So, you know, I just tried my pass, it didn't work, and you know, just from my side, I thought I had it, but that's, you know, I did my best trying to pass him there.
Well, fun and games, of course, but it didn't quite work out. Meanwhile, watch out for Richie Hearn and Bobby Rahal. Richie Hearn, you could see him laying the rubber as he came out of turn 9 just then. Has a little look at thinking of going past Bobby Rahal, decides against it, tucks back in again. But this is a good drive, again a bit sideways. Got to watch that a little bit because the rear tyres are really going to take a hammering around this track. Traction is very important, getting on the power out of slow corners. That's going to heat the rear tyres up a great deal. And well, into the pits there is Robbie Gordon, and it looks as though it's the end of his day. That's a great shame. He's been running well in the last few races. Looks as though it's all over for him today. But that tyre wear problem, just come back to that, Jeremy, that is a factor today.
Certainly is. Tyre wear is always a factor at Portland International Raceway. It is a quite abrasive surface. Plus, as we talked about earlier on, those G-forces at the west end of the racetrack, it beats the heck out of these tyres. And it's a very hard race indeed for the tyre manufacturers. So far this weekend, one has to say that Firestone has been looking a lot better than Goodyear, but as we look down the order here, there is Gilles de Ferran, the Valvoline car. He is running Goodyear tyres, and he is in 4th place.
Yes, and he seems to be running consistent times as well. Just looking at the times, a 61.9 from Franchitti there, and a 61.9 from Zanardi, but Pruitt and Gilles de Ferran in the 62s. So the times slowing down a little bit now as they've done a few laps. Certainly the heat build-up perhaps reducing the amount of grip they've got. At the moment though, Franchitti enjoying an advantage of 2.2 seconds over Scott Pruitt. Just to let you know, Brian Herter hasn't made any progress after that early stop that he made, but then again he may not try to take any risks. He's behind Al Unser Jr., only fractionally behind him, but perhaps he'll just play it a bit cautious in this early stage. They've taken a different tactical decision already. They may now play it out a bit to see exactly what happens. On board with teammate Bobby Rahal, he's in 6th place, but it's Dario Franchitti who leads after 19 laps. Portland, and there is Arndt Meyer doing a sterling job at the moment. The German racer in 8th position in that Lola, the only Lola in the field, remember, and what a great job he's doing. He qualified down in 25th position, and there he is all the way up in 8th. Meanwhile, Robbie Gordon's gone out of this race. We saw that just, oops, Meyer just locking up a bit there, but ooh, he's gone in a bit wide. He just about saves it. He's got to watch out because Helio Castroneves is right behind, ready to take advantage, but I think Meyer just did enough to save it. Good effort that. He made the mistake, but he did recover recover it. So after that slightly heart-stopping moment, Arndt Meyer holds it. Let's hear from Robbie Gordon.
Tires is Robbie Gordon, another DNF, the second I understand in 4, but this time it was fuel pressure problems.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I came off last corner, went to get back on the gas, and it didn't have anything. And I said, hey, I thought maybe I broke a throttle linkage or something. And they said, no, he lost fuel pressure. So, it's unfortunate because the reliability on the Toyota has been pretty good. The only other incident was myself making a mistake at Milwaukee. So, the guys at Toyota are doing a good job. We've closed the gap up quite a bit. We qualified about 1 second off, so we're pretty happy with that.
Robbie, you're always one of the guys that sets really great goals for oneself. When will Robbie Gordon win a race with Toyota power?
I believe by the end of the year we'll be finishing on the podium, and anything can happen when you finish on the podium. You can be at the right place at the right time. Unfortunate today, we wanted to run all day and learn more about the engine, learn more about the chassis, because my engineer Ken Anderson and myself, it's the first time we've been back together in a few years. So, I believe there's a lot of improvements coming in the future.
And guys, the reference to Kenny Anderson, don't forget all of the wins that Robbie Gordon had, well, they started with Kenny Anderson. They've got good communication.
Back on board now with Alex Zanardi holding on to third place, chasing after Scott Pruitt. Remember, it's Franchitti who leads. His lead is now up to 3.3 seconds. Some sterlingly quick laps from Franchitti in the last few laps. I've seen him stretch that advantage a bit. Then you've got Pruitt and Zanardi. They're separated by less than a second. And then Gilles de Ferran, watch out for him. There he is in the background. He's running in 4th place. Tony Kanaan then in 5th place. Then there's quite a gap back to Bobby Rahal. There across the line you can see the fastest. Franchitti again on that last lap with the fastest lap time, a 61.6, better than anybody else that we've seen go across the line so far. So Franchitti really is putting in some tremendously fast laps.
Superb, and he has this race under control at the moment. Of course, an awful long way to go. We've only done 24 laps out of 98, so not even 1/3 of the way into this race. So there's plenty of time for action to happen. The pit stops, of course, not yet around for most of the leaders, and we'll see what happens then. So plenty of time to go, lots of strategy yet to be played out.
Well, Franchitti certainly doing his best job. Friday he was qualified here on pole position after putting in a very, very brave lap, I have to say. Even he afterwards, I spoke to him about it, was a little sort of made it, There were a few moments along the way. Yesterday in qualifying he made a couple of mistakes which just stopped him getting pole. He was actually up on Brian Herta's pole lap till he got to the last corner, and he made a couple of admitted mistakes, and that really stopped him getting pole. But now that he's got some clear air, he's able to lap at his own pace, and that's allowing him to pull away up front. Meanwhile, down there is Brian Herta. The Shell car is behind the two Penske's. Herta, our early leader, remember, he came in for a tactical fuel stop. The problem is that he's now got held up behind slower cars, and the difficulty of overtaking, well, that's been all too apparent, hasn't it, in this race so far. Really only that one opportunity into the festival curves after the start-finish straight, and if you go for it there, you're taking a risk. There's no doubt about it.
And that is the danger of that kind of strategy. We're on board here with Michael Andretti, who is in fact 2 laps down. He is running now in 22nd place, so pretty much out of contention. But he is able to stay with Brian Herta. And as you say, Ben, Brian is trapped behind the 2 Penske cars. There's no doubt, I think, that Herta is significantly faster than those two. But at this stage in the game, he's not losing that much ground to the leaders. And Herta knows that he can make this race on 2 stops, and he hopes that everybody else also is going to have to make 2 stops, but his next stop is going to be for a lesser amount of fuel, and he hopes that by making a much shorter pit stop, that will move him back toward the front of the pack.
That's right, yes. It does depend on what yellows we get, because at the moment Franchitti is lapping about a second a lap faster than Herta can manage behind these guys. And if it stays green, then that gap, well, obviously the gap that Franchitti opens up will remain when they come into the pits. If there's a yellow, of course they'll all concertina up, and Franchitti's gap that he's worked so hard to develop will come to nothing again. So all to play for here still, as you say, not quite at the distance to see the first round of pit stops. Another one we've seen out of this race in a separate incident was JJ Leto earlier on in this race. Unfortunately, nothing to do with any accidents there. It was looked like a mechanical problem that puts JJ Leto out of the race. So at the end of a disappointing weekend, the rookie who's really been struggling to get to grips with luck more than anything else. They just haven't had particularly good fortune, although he's run quite well on a number of occasions, particularly on the ovals. There's the view from above. The 2 Penske's, the first one is Andre Ribeiro, the second one is Al Unser Jr., and they're running in 10th and 11th places. Penske Zanardi still working so hard to try and make this a competitive proposition, this brand new car for the 1998 season. They even experimented with a longer wheelbase. So the shades of Formula One here. They experimented with a longer wheelbase car on Friday for Alonso Jr., but really didn't learn anything that was particularly advantageous. So they've gone back to the standard chassis. Let's hear from JJ Leto now, the man we were talking about a moment ago, who is out of this race.
We talked about JJ Leto, and we confirmed with your car owner, Carl Hogan, that it was a Mercedes motor that expired. But I want to talk to you about the escalating heat. I asked Danny Sullivan if maybe that is accounting for some of the slipping and sliding we're seeing out there. Your perspective, having gotten out of the cockpit.
Well, I mean, it's just the heat wasn't really affecting. I couldn't really feel that much yet because the tires were still really cold and the temperature wasn't up and the pressure wasn't up. So it felt pretty much the same than in the morning, everything. So there was no real problem. I think that for sure it's going to get more slippery, you know, during the race, but I have no experience from here, so I don't know.
JJ, when does this team come together and sit back and say, look, we've got to reassess our situation? A lot of promise, but so far nothing delivered.
Yeah, I mean, we have been very unlucky all season so far, and we have been just trying to work very hard, but you know, it's just the bad luck is on our side at the moment. There's going to be a lot of changes, you know, in a short time, and we are just working very hard. We are starting to test now, and we are just trying to get things together, you know. It's just the things hasn't been together in the last couple of races, and it's just a shame, you know, because the team is very good. The guys has been working very hard, and you know, if there's no results, everybody feels bad. And
well, maybe the key of what we heard, guys, is the fact that he said there are changes on the horizon.
Back to the action. Scott Pruitt is being closed up by Alex Zanardi, but look, Mark Blundell is out. There's been contact between him and Jimmy Vasser, and guess where? Yep, the festival curves. The defending champion, the race winner here last year, and what a disappointment. Such a shame for Mark. They've got some progress with this car. They have been going better, but it's all over for him today, and he'll just have to look forward to Cleveland. Frank Diddy is our race leader, having completed 31 laps now, beginning to get into that first pit stop window. We're not quite there yet. We reckon there's still a number of laps for Dario Franchitti with those yellows that we've had so far. Coming up behind Dennis Vitolo here, the slowest car out there on the circuit at the moment, but he's come across him at a pretty much ideal time, because he's now got the chance to draft past him on the start-finish straight and get past safely as they turn into the festival curve. So Franchitti deals with that tiny little drama very comfortably and has no problem. His lead over Scott Pruitt, 4.6 seconds. Then Zanardi still right behind Scott Pruitt, with Gilles de Ferran in fourth, Tony Kanaan fifth. You're on board there with Alex Zanardi, and there is second place man Scott Pruitt just ahead. Meanwhile, let me tell you that behind Ray Hall in 6th, Richie Hearn still in 7th, Arndt Meyer in 8th, then Helio Castroneves in 9th, Ribeiro 10th, Anderson Jr. in 11th, and Brian Herter 12th. I think we're not really likely to see any major changes now until that first pit stop, but the pressure will be on all the teams in the pit lane.
Yeah, and here is Alex Zanardi there. We're on board with him, watching him chase down Scott Pruitt, and certainly as the pit stop's near, Alex Zanardi smells blood. His pit crew this year has been absolutely sensational. He's 9 times out of 10, it seems, he's made up positions in the pits. He wants to be as close as he can behind Scott Pruitt when they come time for the pit stops, and he'll hope that his crew can get him out ahead of Scott Pruitt during those pit stops.
We've seen a few people come into the pits. Max Papis has just been into the pits for his first proper fuel stop, and goes back out. And remind you that Mark Blundell is out of this race. An incident involving Jimmy Vasser. We didn't get a view of it, I'm afraid, but Blundell, no chance of defending the race win that he took here last year. But still, there have been positive signs for the Pac West team this weekend. I can just tell you that Helio Castroneves has come into the pits just opposite our commentary position, as we still concentrate on this battle for second place. Zanardi really closing right up behind Scott Pruitt, keeping the pressure on as we approach those all-important pit stops. Slightly new rule for this weekend as well, in that the fuel hose has now got to be a length of 12 feet for all the teams. Now that's made a little bit of difference in how they position the car in the pit boxes. It might actually make the pit stop fractionally longer as well.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit more time for the fuel to flow into. There is Scott Pruitt coming into the pits. Zanardi stays out on the road, and Zanardi now is going to try and turn a lap or two, the hopes that are really, really fast, and make up enough ground so that when he comes in and makes his pit stop, he'll be out ahead of the Visteon car of Scott Pruitt.
Scott Pruitt in pretty early, lap number 34, and we have had some yellow flag laps on the way there as well, so you have to say that fuel consumption is going to be tough for Pruitt. I think he's going to have to make 3 stops to be able to get through this race safely. Good stop, gets away cleanly and rejoins the field. That's down in about 9th position when he rejoins, but we'll just have to see whether he's going to have enough fuel to make it through on 2 stops. Meanwhile, we've heard that Helio Castroneves had some sort of incident coming out of the pit, and he's now got a puncture to deal with. There is Alex Zanardi. Meanwhile, he's coming up passing Max Papis, not for position. Remember, Max Papis some way further down, and these two, Franchitti and Zanardi, staying out on track at the moment. But as I mentioned, Helio Castroneves obviously in trouble with a punctured tyre. Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to have a look at that in a moment. Franchitti now coming up to look at getting past Meyer, but Zanardi's in, lap number 35, so still relatively early in this race. Zanardi making his first stop. Gilles de Ferran is in as well, so is Tony Kanaan. So a lot of the front runners choosing lap 35 to make the stops.
But as you say, not Dario Franchitti, so it'll be one more lap at least for Dario Franchitti. And meanwhile, some of these other cars that have made pit stops earlier on are being able to take advantage of that. Certainly the Penske's are still out on the racetrack. They came under those early cautions, and Brian Herter is of course still stuck behind those two, so we'll see what happens these next few laps. They're going to be pretty interesting.
They are, and it's also risky as they come out of the pits on and rejoin the track. That's where incidents can occur very easily, with the width of the track there, leaving the car out there fairly blind to see if there is a car on the inside coming from the pits. Dario Franchitti, we hear, is about to come into the pits. There he is, down the pit lane. Now then, can Team Green do their work well? They've had a few problems in the pits this year. Paul Tracy particularly has been a victim of some of those problems. He's right opposite our commentary position as they go to work. Just 6 men allowed over the wall, of course, in this form of racing. Change of tyres, fuel goes aboard. It's methanol fuel that goes on board, and they just have to wait for all that fuel to get in before they can go. It's a slower stop than Zanardi. Oh no! He stalled it! Dario, what are you doing? He's stalled the engine. They're trying to push start him, and now he's losing time and time and time. Oh, it's dreadful for Franchitti, the race leader. Has he got it going? No, it's still not going. And of course, the temptation is to lift the clutch too early. Now he's being forced to bring it back, and that's it. Franchitti's chance of winning this race right out of the window. So sad after such a well-driven first stint, but can you believe it? Dario Franchitti has stalled it coming out of the pit lane. He will be absolutely furious with himself inside that cockpit. He's got to try and keep his head now. The engine is fired up. At last he gets away. But that looks like it, and I can just see the team members over the other side. They can't believe it. Why has this happened to them? Every time they get into a good position this year, something seems to go wrong.
Frustration there. It is so disappointing for these guys. God, they've worked so hard. As you say, and Dario driven absolutely flawlessly through that first stint, but one slip, that's all it takes.
Well, a few other drivers haven't been into the pits yet, and that includes the 2 Penske's, although one of them is in now. Andre Ribeiro is into the pits. Alonso Jr. is now being shown as race leader. There he is. Now, they seem to be going a long way on this first tank full of fuel. And
they came in under the caution earlier on. Those early couple of cautions, both Penske's came in, and of course, as did Brian Herter. So there is Alonso Jr. He's going to take advantage of this track position, and you show Alonso Jr. a sniff of the lead, and he perks up considerably. He doesn't tend to hang it out, it seems, unless everything is going his way. Well, it's going his way right now, and here we are now on board with Alex Zanardi, and as we suggested, he did get out of the pits ahead of Scott Pruitt.
Yes, so Zanardi gaining some time there, and that means that Unser leads, Herter is second, Zanardi third, and remember, on different stop strategies, Unser and Herter have stopped, but that was quite a while ago. Zanardi's only just recently stopped, so we're in for a very intriguing tactical situation here. Michael Andretti on the road is behind Unser and Herter, but remember, he's more than a lap down, so Andretti not featuring in the battle at all.
Yeah, there is the lead battle, the first 2 cars. Being back, quite a way back there are the 3rd and 4th place cars of Alex Zanardi and Scott Pruitt. Then it is Jimmy Vasser and Mauricio Gugelmin, who's also on a different pit stop strategy. So all sorts of people coming into the pits in different times, and it's really difficult to know at this stage who really shuffles out where in terms of the overall order of this race. But most people now have at least made one pit stop, But what's going to be very interesting is whether some of the leaders in the latter stages are going to have to make a splash and go toward the finish.
Let me tell you that Dario Franchitti, after all those problems he suffered, is now running down in 17th place. That's how long he was in the pits. It lost him that much time. It effectively lost him some 38 seconds or so, and that really is a great disappointment. So Franchitti down in 17th position, and well, what can you say? He's just got to get out there, do his best, and try and pick off one by one to get back into the points. Looking at the two Toyota-powered cars of Dan Gurney's team, Alex Barron and PJ Jones, both of whom are racing with their fathers in attendance here on Father's Day, and both running pretty much together all the way through this race so far. They're running down in 13th for PJ Jones and 14th places for Alex Barron. Andre Ribeiro's back on track there, as you can see, and Richie Hearn down the field there as well. Hearn is now lying in 12th position, so as you say, Jeremy, things all a bit topsy-turvy now, with some having stopped at different times in this race so far. These two running reliably, consistently at the moment, and I have to say Alex Barron again doing a fine job. The rookie this year hasn't got the same sort of competitive package perhaps as some of the other rookies who are racing, but I've been impressed with his consistency, the way he's been as quick as PJ on most occasions, if not quicker, and generally when the car's held together he's been finishing as well.
Certainly has, and there are the two All-American Racers cars. Some great battles back on board with Alex Zanardi. He's about 10 seconds or more behind Brian Herter, who is still behind Al Unser Jr. And I told about the red flag to the bull with Al Unser Jr. He's turning some very quick laps indeed, 61.8. That's pretty good. There's not many people under the 62s at this stage in the race. He is, of course, on a relatively low tank of fuel now, but certainly running well, Al Unser Jr. and able, it seems, comfortably to stay ahead of Brian Herter.
View with Alex Zanardi. This section of corners taken in third gear around 120 miles an hour, then building up third, fourth, fifth and sixth gear as they come up the back stretch, and they're up to about 188 miles an hour. That was one of the fastest speeds we saw on the speed trap figure just here before they get onto the brakes. Down a couple of gears through this quick left kick, a bit of power on here to balance the car, and then brake and down to second gear for turn 9 before getting hard on the throttle again and accelerating down this drag strip. That's why the lines are there. It really is a drag strip, not used for such today, but the drag strip is used for drag racing, and of course they don't have to go through this fiddly little chicane at the festival curves. I have to say though, it does add some fun and drama into the race by having that corner. On board there with Tony Kanaan. Tony's doing pretty well at the moment, lying in 8th place.
Yeah, he was running 5th there before the stops and pretty much keeping pace with Gilles de Ferry. He's now in the middle of a pretty good battle there. Ahead of him on the road is Mauricio Gugelmin. Ahead of Gugelmin is Jimmy Vasser. And that is 6th, 7th and 8th. And right behind Tony Kanaan also is Patrick Carpentier. A pretty good 4-car battle there. Just caught a glimpse of the light blue players car of Patrick Carpentier, the only players car, of course, left in this race. Thanks to Greg Moore's incident at the first corner. But there are those 4 cars. Spread out just a little bit left through the twistier sections of the track. At the end of the straightaway, they seem to concentrate up a little bit closer to one another. And there is the young rookie driver. What a personality is Tony Kanaan. He's going to be a big star in this sport and driving very, very well indeed this afternoon and looking to regain the lead in the Rookie of the Year points battle from his teammate last year in Indy Lights with the Tasman operation, Helio Castroneves, who had a problem after his first pit stop. Is a lap down and in 18th position.
Right behind Tony on board we're running with now is Patrick Carpentier. Mystifying loss of performance from the players' Forsyth team in qualifying yesterday. Patrick Carpentier had actually been fastest on Saturday morning, and he was really over the moon suddenly when he's been struggling on road courses really since he came into the CART series last year with the Bettenhausen team. Suddenly there he was on a road course putting in very quick lap times consistently. He looked fantastic, he looked brave, but he looked determined and smooth where he needed to be. In qualifying yesterday, the players team just got it all wrong, didn't they? I mean, what was going on there?
Very strange, but of course, you know, this field is so tightly packed, isn't it? I mean, if you look down at the order here, we look back to Patrick Carpentier, who's in 11th place, and he's only, what, a half a second away from the second row people. So it was all awfully tight, and particularly in the middle of the pack there. And Greg Moore, he was barely slower than his teammate, only a 1/10 of a second slower, and 3 places back on the grid.
back with our race leader, Al Unser Jr., a 3 times winner of this race. Remember, he's had some pretty good runs here. The last 2 wins were in 1994 and in 1995. He had pole here in 1994 as well. And in fact, he took his first ever victory in his kart career. That was back in 1984, a long time ago now. Some 14 years since he scored his first win in the championship. But it's been a little while since he won his last race. He would just love the opportunity. Driving well here, and the car in race trim again does seem to be pretty good. We saw this in Detroit as well. In race trim, the car seems to work quite well, and he's keeping Brian Herter, who's been fastest pretty much throughout the weekend, keeping him pretty comfortably behind at this point. We gather that there's only about 2 or 3 laps before Al Unser Jr. is due in for his next stop, however. So that perhaps could change things around.
Certainly, he came into the pits for the first time on lap 11. We're now up to 44 laps in the book, so he has done 33 laps, and all of those pretty much have been under green flag conditions. The race leader before, Dario Franchitti, did 36 laps, but what, 5 or 6 laps of those have been under caution. So yes, Unser will be in pretty shortly now, and I think Herter will probably be able to do maybe a couple of laps longer than that, because he did actually come in 2 laps after Al Unser Jr. As we talked about Dario Franchitti, he is back in a race. He is in 16th position, and he's actually involved in quite a scrap now. He's caught up to the 2 AAR cars, the All-American Racers cars, and Art Meyer, who are running nose to tail now, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th.
So Al Unser Jr., here he comes into the pits on lap number 45 as Brian Herter takes over the lead of this race, and the Penske crew go to work. A bit of a front wing change there. You could see them turning the adjusters on the front wing to change the handling of the car just a little bit, and the tyres going on board as well. The fuel goes on board. We've seen some 12.5 second stops. Well, not the fastest, but he doesn't stall it. That's the key issue. And in fact, we're seeing several other drivers in. Vasser is in, so is Maurizio Gugelmin in the Pac West car. So several of the potential front runners who took early stops are now making their second pit stop of the day. Brian Herter is our race leader while all this goes on, with Zanardi second, Pruitt third, DeFerran fourth, and Kanaan in 5th position. Let's just watch this stop for Jimmy Vasser. Not a great one from the Ganassi crew on this occasion, 14.5 seconds. We've seen some mid-12 second stops, and indeed Gugelmin, the Pac West crew, did a better job. That got Gugelmin ahead. Dennis Vitolo's right in the middle of all that. Ooh, that's always a bit of a danger, and the drivers all worry about Dennis. They're never quite sure if he knows where they're going to be next, and indeed that's made a difference. Look at Art Meyer. Meyer now on warm tyres goes past Jimmy Vasser. Great move from Art Meyer, and well, you've got to fight for every position, and Vasser, trying to get his tyres up to temperature, finds himself really in the middle of a tremendous battle there. So all going on. Art Meyer driving a great race at the moment.
Certainly is. There is Brian Herter now, 61.3 last time around. That's about the quickest lap of the race, I think. So once he's free of Al Unser Jr. and the downforce of Brian's car not affected now by the Penske with clean air in front of him, he's looking to make full use of that advantage, try and stretch his lead. He leads Alex Zanardi by 9.7 seconds. Zanardi is a second and a little bit ahead of Scott Pruitt.
So Brian Herter could be in this time. Let's see whether he's due to make his second stop. Yes, he is. He tightens up the line on the exit of turn 9 and comes into the Team Rahal pit. Now then, onto the speed limit. Quite a long way down the pit lane. So he's got to be patient as he comes down towards the pit box. Then he has to slot the car in exactly the right place. They're not allowed to be too close to the pit wall now. That's something the drivers asked for. And they've got to be about 4 foot away from the pit wall, hence the slightly longer fuel tubes being used this weekend. Bit of a change on the front wing there as well, and away they go. So Brian Herter, good stop, 11.8 seconds. Team Rahal are doing some excellent stops today.
They certainly are. They get him back out on the road, I think, right there behind Tony Kanaan, who is running in 5th place. And it'll be interesting now whether he gets ahead of Al Unser Jr. I think he did get ahead of Jr., and that's good news for Brian Herter.
Alex Zanardi is now the leader of this race, though, as we approach the half-distance mark. Up front, it's Alex Zanardi who leads, with Scott Pruitt in second position by 3.2 seconds. Gilles de Ferran is in third place, ahead of Tony Kanaan. Brian Herter is in fifth place, in spite of the second stop that he's now made. Meanwhile, further back, you can see Jimmy Vasser and Dario Franchitti together. Both of them have suffered problems in this race so far, and they're now running in 11th and 12th places. But Dario Franchitti still to make his second stop, whereas Jimmy Vasser has made a couple of stops in this race already. The stop situation, the pit stops, are going to be absolutely crucial to this race. We've now seen the likes of Herter and Unser make 2 pit stops. They will, if they're, well, all the way, they'll have to make one more stop. But Alex Zanardi, Scott Pruitt, Gilles de Ferran, they will have to make at least one more stop. The likelihood is they'll have to make a third splash and dash stop as well, because the number of laps that they're managing to do on a tank of fuel simply isn't enough to make it through on 2 stops. It's going to be a close run thing. I wondered, Jeremy, if we were going to see Alex slow the pace down now that he's up front and try and go on the fuel conservation mode, but he doesn't seem to be doing that, does he?
No, he doesn't. 61.6 and pretty comfortable around there. Last 3 laps have all been just about exactly the same, so running pretty strong. And yeah, as you say, you know, it's going to be an awful tall on. He's going to need some yellows, I think, in order to make the finish on just one more pit stop. So I'm not going to make any predictions at this stage in the game. There isn't. He certainly is out now in a pretty comfortable lead. He's pulling away from Scott Pruitt at around about a half a second a lap. So Pruitt, I think, definitely is in fuel conservation mode. He is, I think, hoping to be able to make it on just one more stop and then see how it goes a little bit later in the race. But Alex Zanardi, he's decided, well, let's put our foot down, assume we've got to make a stop at this stage, and if we can save some fuel later on, then all well and good. But I want as much of an advantage as I can in case I need to make that final stop.
That's right. I think absolutely that's got to be the strategy for the Italian at the moment. The championship leader, of course, in this series, a man who's already taken 3 wins. Last time out in Detroit is his most recent, also the winner of the Gateway race and the winner at Long Beach. And Alex Zanardi, a winner here in 1996. He ran well in the wet, dry conditions here last year, but the team and he made a bad call on tyres and they left him out on the wet tyre, which was not a good choice at all, and he slithered around and virtually fell off towards the end of the race. Ended up still finishing down in 11th place, but it was a bad decision by both the team and Alex Zanardi on that one. But on this occasion, everything working well. He's up front, controlling the pace of this race. Now 4.8 seconds ahead of Scott Pruitt. So at the moment we're watching Jimmy Vasser here, his teammate, and Vasser and Franchitti running, as I say, in tandem at the moment. Both lapping quite fast. A 61.4 last lap from Jimmy Vasser, which is faster than teammate Alex Zanardi, who's actually leading this race. Franchitti staying with him. Oh, look at this, loads of smoke.
That's Michael Andretti.
What's going on there? Did he spin it, do you think, coming out of turn 9?
I think he must have done a big spin. He certainly hasn't been in the pits, because there's the pits alongside him. So, and all sorts of chalk and something all over that right front tyre. That's fairly curious. Not quite sure what happened there.
No, that's right. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see. He has got an onboard camera, of course, on the Newman Haas Swift, so perhaps we'll get another chance. He goes through the festival curves just ahead of Maurizio Gugelmin, but Michael is taking it very, very steady, so perhaps either contact with something or perhaps the handling of the car felt so strange, which maybe caused the spin. He's decided to back right off now, and it looks as though Michael's day is run again.
Yeah, of course, he was already 2 laps down and back, even now in 21st position, so really a hopeless cause today for Michael Andretti. Great shame, and he is well off the pace there and off the line, and just, I think, cruising back to the pits.
Got a chance to see what happened. The replay's coming up for you to see exactly what happened to Michael. This is where he was coming down into the last corner now. This is turn number 9, where we saw him off the track, apparently. He accelerates out. He just lost it, didn't he? Back end got away. Whoa, look at that. Sliding his way down the straight and just making contact with the wall.
That's where the mark came from on the right front tyre, isn't it? The paint there on the track, just adjacent to that wall. Very curious place to lose it then. He's coming now into the pit lane. Miserable day for Michael Andretti, but very odd place to lose it. You do tend to run over a low curb there on the exit of that turn on the outside, and you think just as he came off that, the back end just came around on him. Very strange spin for Michael Andretti. Most unlike him to do something like that.
Tell you what, watching out on track on Friday, watching the cars over the curbs, the Swift much more reactive over the curbs. He was being cautious with it through the curbs, through turns 7 and 8. Didn't really want to bounce off the curbs. You could see him being a little cautious. same with Christian Fittipaldi. He tried to keep off the curves. The car is really quite stiff and I think very unforgiving if they bounce it over the curves, and perhaps that's what caught Michael out. The Reynard chassis, that little bit more compliant, the way they have them set up around here, they seem to be able to bang them over the curves without too many worries. And Michael Andretti perhaps just falling victim to that feature of the handling of this chassis. Perhaps the tyres were going off, difficult to say, but he has rejoined the race. He's still going to keep going. Meanwhile, back with our race leader, there he is, Alex Zanardi. He's had a couple of spins this weekend in the practice sessions, but at the moment he's keeping it all together as he continues to hold that lead over Scott Pruitt. 4.2 seconds is his advantage now. Our coverage continues with Alex Zanardi still leading this race by 7.9 seconds. He's really opened up an advantage now. I think there might have been some traffic involved in that because the previous lap Alex had a bit of a slow lap and suddenly Scott Pruitt had a very slow lap.
Yeah, I think Max Papis there, he had to lap, and Zanardi got past him a couple of laps ago, and I think it was Pruitt's turn then, and Pruitt in fact, he's got to look into his mirrors because Gilles de Ferran is not very far back at all, less than half a second in fact as they came around that time. Gilles de Ferran should have been turning a string of fast laps.
Just looking at the race recap, leader Zanardi, but we've had 5 different leaders in this race so far.
Interesting, ahead of Alex Zanardi, that is Patrick Carpentier, who's the last car on the lead lap in 14th position, and right ahead of Carpentier is Art Meyer, who has been running fairly well with that Lola. He lost a bit of time during the pit stops. He's been running pretty consistently, and Alex Zanardi can have a little bit of a battle getting past these two, I believe, but he has a good, comfortable cushion. 7.5 seconds at least now over the second place car of Scott Pruitt.
Well, this is costing Alex some time, of course, as you say, and he's going to be anxious to try and get past as quickly as possible. I wonder if he's going to have a go into turn 1, as it's called here. It's still called turn 1, even though they put the festival curves in after the start-finish straight. They never renamed the corners, so we end up with turn 1 actually being effectively turn number 3 on the track. And still Zanardi is stuck behind Arndt Meyer and Patrick Carpentier. Apparently Zanardi already requesting a pullover flag for the CART officials, or from the CART officials, for these two to get out of his way, because his advantage over Scott Pruitt is going to be reduced. There's no doubt about that. It is tough for him to get past. He's got to try and set it up now as he comes down to the last corner. Get a good exit from this bend. Try and keep the front end grip, which is going to get away from him a little bit as he's so close behind these two, and now try and get them into the festival curve.
Certainly Carpentier seemed to get a pretty good run off this turn, but there goes Zanardi. You just saw a glimpse of him diving down to the inside, and the camera's actually now watching back down the track to Scott Pruitt, and behind him is Max Papis, who is still holding up Gilles de Ferran, and Gilles de Ferran having a horrible time. He just cannot get past by Max Papis. That, of course, he does get past Max Papis, but he was 3 laps behind him. That's cost him more than 5 seconds to Scott Pruitt.
So bad news indeed for Pruitt. But what of Alex Zanardi? Has he managed to find a way past Patrick Carpentier and Arndt Meyer as yet? They were definitely holding him up a little bit. We'll have to see whether he's managed to go past. On board with Gilles de Ferran at the moment, looking from his rear-facing camera. Third place driver Gilles de Ferran had a couple of second places. Well, it looks as though Zanardi's passed Carpentier, but he's not yet past Meyer. So he's got past one of them. Now he's got to try and build it up as he comes out of turn 9. And there you can see really accelerating hard, trying to pick up the slipstream to make an attempt.
Yeah, and we are down on the fastest part of the straight now, and Zanardi looks to the inside, and Meyer gives him room down the inside. Zanardi goes past and gets through there very cleanly indeed. Of course, Zanardi's not terribly impressed with Arndt Meyer's driving so far this season. He's cost him a couple of positions on the ovals. One, of course, he reckons, was that win in Rio, where Greg Moore, if you remember, pulled off that sensational pass. Here we now look to the battle between Tony Kanaan and Brian Herter. Herter has been running very quickly, and so, in fact, has Tony Kanaan. They've brought a gap of what was 10 seconds down back to Gilles de Ferran, down to now around about 6, or less than 6, in fact. I know de Ferran was held up by Max Papis, but certainly these two have been closing in any case.
So this is the battle for 4th place between the Brazilian rookie in the car you're looking from now, back at Brian Herter, the more experienced competitor in the CART series of these two, but Brian Herter still chasing that first win. This is his 64th start in the championship, as opposed to the 9th start for Tony Kanaan. But Kanaan, with the Indy Lights title behind him, as Brian Herter scored some years ago, is not about to let Brian Herter go past easily. This is a true battle for position, and Kanaan holding on to an excellent 4th place. He's not going to give that up without a very intense battle indeed. But Brian Herter now really trying to slot into position behind Canaan, perhaps to make an attempt into the festival, because, again, not close enough. He can't get enough of a toe, and he slots back into position behind Canaan. Canaan's best result so far this year, 5th position at Long Beach. So this 4th place at the moment. Of course, still some way to go in this race. That's still a potential best personal result for Tony Kanaan if he can hang on to this. But the pit stops will play their part. Kanaan's only stopped once so far. Brian Herter's already made 2 stops. It looks as though most people are going to have to make 3 stops to make it through this race. And there you saw Kanaan just a little bit wide. Perhaps the pressure just beginning to get to him a little bit.
Perhaps so. He's a pretty smart young man, though, Tony Kanaan. He's a very, very good racing driver. He won last year's Indy Lights Championship, and certainly, though, he's going to have to make sure that he doesn't watch his mirrors too close. Steve Horn here, a vested interest in both these drivers. They both won an Indy Lights Championship for Steve Horn, the Tasman team owner, and Steve Horn will be on the radio to Tony Kanaan saying he will be telling him exactly where Brian is. You don't watch your mirrors, you worry about driving the car, maintain your line, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to stay ahead of Brian Herter. Don't watch your mirrors too much, and don't make a mistake because of it.
Meanwhile, Alex Zanardi is going quickly now that he's got some clean air up front. His time on the last lap was a 61.6, but Gilles Ferrin also putting in a quick lap, a 61.7, as he chases after Scott Pruitt for 2nd place. Pruitt, meanwhile, really does seem to be going that little bit slower, whether that's to do with fuel conservation, although I still think that Pruitt is going to have to make 2 more stops. He was one of the earlier stoppers of our lead group. There is Zanardi. We are getting into the area where we expect to see Zanardi make his 2nd stop. A little way to go yet, but within the next 5 or 6 laps, expect Zanardi to come back in for his 2nd stop.
Lap 35 was the first pit stop for Alex Zanardi. We're now at lap 63 in the books, so he has done 28 laps. So I would say another 3 or 4 laps, and we can expect to see Alex Zanardi in pit lane once again.
That's right, because the first segment, of course, included quite a few yellow flag laps, whereas on this occasion, the 2nd segment of this race has run yellow-free, and that means the fuel consumption that much greater, of course. Remember, they have a fuel setting switch in that cockpit that they adjust according to their track position and to what the engineers are getting back on the telemetry, how much fuel is in the car, how much the fuel consumption is varying depending on how quickly the driver's going, whether he's in traffic, and of course there's an individual setting for when they're on a yellow flag, the most economical setting of all, where they really just drive around trying to conserve fuel for pace car. Very sophisticated electronics on these 2.65-litre turbocharged V8 engines to get the fuel economy as good as possible, and that's really where a great deal of the work from Honda, Mercedes, Ford and Toyota goes in to gain that little bit of an advantage in this kind of racing. Meanwhile, back to that battle for 4th place, and still it's a hard battle between Tony Kanaan and Brian Herter.
Yeah, and they are in fact now slowing one another up, or Tony Kanaan certainly is slowing up Brian Herter. And there is Max Papis ahead, and Herter now looks to the inside, has position on Tony Kanaan, and that is crucial, very crucial indeed. He is now 22 seconds behind Alex Zanardi. That's too much for Brian Herter. Irrespective of their pit stop strategies, even if Zanardi has to make a splash and go, that should be enough for him to be able to hold off Brian Herter. And unless there is a change now of some sort, I think the cards are looking good for Alex Zanardi. But Herter needed to make that pass. He made it cleanly, and if he can get past Max Papis now, turn in some quick laps, all is not yet lost.
Yeah, so interesting performance that from Brian Herter. Really made the move on Kanaan, and now he's got to make the move on Max Papis. I think Max is pretty much getting out of his way. There's no fight about that at all. Herter now in 4th place, in 4th position behind Gilles Ferrin, who's holding on to 3rd. Scott Pruitt's into the pit. Now we're on lap number 65. There are still some 33 laps to go. Pruitt, can he make it through the remaining 33 laps without stopping again? Well, it could be possible. It could be possible that he could make it through on that number. Tony Kanaan's into the pits. Number of cars coming into the pits on this lap. A fairly major wing change, and a 13.3-second stop for Scott Pruitt. Pretty good, but not the best that we've seen here this afternoon. So Pruitt in about a lap earlier than they had thought. He's going to be fairly tight to make it through on the rest of it. 33 laps, so he might be able to get that, but it means he's probably going to have to turn the weight down a little bit to make sure if there are no yellow flag laps. But as we go through this, and that Zanardi's still not come into the pits, it does look more likely that Zanardi's going to be able to get through with just one more stop.
Absolutely it does then. Now he has just done, what, lap 35 to lap 66, that's 31 laps. If he can go one more lap there, which he obviously is going to be able to do, things are looking very, very good indeed for Alex Zanardi.
So Zanardi controlling this race again. Scott Pruitt rejoins. Gilles de Ferran is now up to second place as he's not been into the pits. Herta now to third, with Al Unser Jr. still doing a fine job in fourth. He will have to make another stop, remember. Meanwhile, Bobby Rahal on board with him. He's lying down in sixth position, just ahead now of Scott Pruitt, who's rejoined in seventh. Still all change around here, but we have to say that those drivers who came into the early stop, including Brian Herta, perhaps it's not going to prove to be tactically the best decision. Herta now in third place, but he is going to have to stop again. And Zanardi not yet into the pits, although he is just in. He is just in, Alex Zanardi. 60, there we are, 67 laps will be completed as he comes into the pits this time. That will leave him 31, and he should just be able to make that on one tank of fuel. Stopped exactly in the right place. Now, the team goes to work, has a little drink. Remember, this is physically tough track. Remember the high temperatures. They're recording a track temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit out there. And it's going to be hot in the car as well. Away he goes cleanly as Gilles de Ferran also takes on fuel and tyres.
There is Gilles de Ferran back out into this race, smokes the tyres, then there is the speed limiter cuts in, you can hear the engine burbling down the pit lane, but he is back in the race. He will be in about 6th or 7th position now, the couple of cars go past. He does get out ahead of Scott Pruitt. That's a very, very good stop indeed for Gilles de Ferran, and if he can get enough pace coming off this corner and stay ahead of Scott Pruitt, that'll look extremely good for Gilles de Ferran, and even better, there he goes, Pruitt looks to the inside, no he can't get it done. I think by the time they go around another couple of corners, Gilles de Ferran's tyres will be up to temperature and he will be able to hold off Pruitt.
So great driving from Gilles de Ferran to be able to hold off Scott Pruitt on the exit of the pits. And justified driving, you can put your car in position to make it hard for the driver behind. That's all Gilles de Ferran was doing. And now the tyres are up to temperature. He should be able to lap consistently and be able to stay ahead of Scott Pruitt. Watch out for Andre Ribeiro, who's right behind these two. Ribeiro running in sixth position now in the Penske. Penske's doing pretty well at the moment. They're third and sixth, but they are due to make another stop. Not just yet, but in a while they will have to make one more stop to make it through to the end of the race. Well, as things look at the moment, Alex Zanardi is in a very comfortable position indeed. Brian Herta is actually our race leader. He has got to make another stop though, as we know, because he made the stop earlier on in this race during the first segment. And Zanardi then has over Gilles de Ferran, who's effectively the next one on the same stop strategy. He has something like a 12-second advantage over Gilles de Ferran. So Zanardi really is looking in great shape indeed. De Ferran, well, it could be another second place for him here, possibly, as meanwhile we're looking across from our commentary position and see that Dario Franchitti's into the pits for his second stop. He should be able to go through cleanly now to the end of the race quite easily. Has dropped him down to 12th place, but he is back into the points, so perhaps he can still recover some points from what was a disastrous first stop when he stalled the engine and he came into the pits. He was leading the race and sadly just lost around half a minute and any chance of taking his first win. So Gilles de Ferran across the line. Just hearing that, although we didn't see it on camera, apparently Franchitti actually lost more time on that last stop. They couldn't get the fuel nozzle in cleanly, so he lost another 7 seconds, so it really isn't a good day for him. Brian Herta leads at the moment, but Zanardi's in great shape. Brian Herta is our race leader after 71 laps have been completed. 27 laps still remain here of the 2-mile Portland International Raceway, the first permanent road circuit of the season. And of course there are some other great road courses to come in the FedEx Championship of 1998. Places like Road America, Mid-Ohio, Laguna Seca. But for this race at the moment, Herta has the advantage, but we all know that he's got to come into the pits, and they're saying it's only going to be another 3 laps or so before he comes in to make his third and final stop. That will then leave Alex Zanardi out front. Zanardi at the moment in second place by 14 seconds. Unser running third, but he has to make another stop. De Ferran running fourth, he's clear, he should be all right. Scott Pruitt, okay, he's running fifth. then it's Ribeiro who'll have to make another stop, and Herta will probably rejoin. Well, difficult to say. Well, by the time the other guys have made their stops, he may still end up in a 4th place or so, perhaps even a chance at the podium. Oh, looks as though one of the Eagle cars has had a trip across the grass somewhere. Couldn't quite spot which one that was, whether it was PJ Jones or Alex Barron. Oops. Oh, he's hit Franchitti! Oh, I don't believe it! A huge accident for Dario Franchitti, and it was PJ Jones, I think. PJ Jones in the All-American Racers car. What was he doing? He was slowly cruising around. He moved across on Franchitti, and Franchitti had nowhere to go, and he slammed into the wall. And this is just amazing. A yellow flag as, well, we haven't got a full course caution at the moment, but Herta has taken advantage of this to come into the pits. But yeah, what an amazing incident.
My goodness, I must admit, I was actually looking out of the window here. I didn't see the incident. I'll have a look at it on the replay, but it was a horrifying looking impact, wasn't it? I just saw the impact with the wall. And Herta did make that pit stop, but Alex Zanardi has gone past him. And Herta there rejoining the race. But there will be, if there is a full course caution, I'm presuming there's going to be a full course caution. I can't actually see the yellow flag. There isn't the yellow flag here. That's amazing to me, because that was a massive accident. Although there will not be perhaps debris off the road because the accident was a long way from the racetrack. But there is Dario Franchitti, and that is great news.
It is great news, because that was a heavy, heavy accident against the wall. Let's take a look at this, Jeremy. You see, look, PJ Jones on the outside, and I don't understand why he squeezed across there. Well, he must surely have seen that Franchitti was coming up.
One would have thought he would have seen him there, particularly after making an error of his own. But certainly, you do exit the road on one side of the track, then you do move across to the right as you're going through that kink, and obviously he didn't see Franchitti was going past him so fast. He just ripped off the left rear corner on Franchitti's car, and Franchitti just cannot believe what happened. The yellow is out.
The yellow is out now, yes, full course caution, no surprise there, just as you say, a surprise that it took as long as it did to come out with shrapnel all over the place after that heavy accident, but great to see Dario Franchitti safely out of the car. And a yellow flag caution period for the accident involving Dario Franchitti. Franchitti had nowhere to go when PJ Jones moved across. PJ was suffering himself. He'd obviously just been off or something, perhaps wasn't fully aware of what was going on around him, but scary accident. There's a summary of what's happening. Zanardi now finds Herta behind him. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Herta has gained a bit from this yellow flag. It was what he needed, and it means that he's now right behind Zanardi, whereas he would have rejoined about 3rd or 4th. He's now rejoined 2nd.
Yeah, there is one car between them. That is Richie Hearn there, who we're looking back at from the target car of Alex Zanardi. So Richie Hearn is running in actual 12th place on the road, 1 lap down, and then it is Brian Herta behind him. So that caution, as you say, Ben, it certainly did help Brian Herta, because he came out of the pits in 2nd place, but there was a 10-second deficit to Alex Zanardi. Absolutely no chance, I think, of him making up that deficit. But if you see, you can get past Richie Hearn right away after this caution comes out, then we could be in for quite a battle. I think though Zanardi has a very good car indeed. Herta certainly has a good car, but let's hope there's a nice clean fight to the finish. And those two, they've been protagonists on these sort of road courses for quite a couple of years now, and they've had some fabulous battles between them, and it's generally, it seems, Zanardi comes out in front. Maybe this will be different.
Just comparing the 1997 season with the 1998 season, up to this point last year for Ganassi, they only had 1 win. They'd had 3 podium finishes, and Vassar ranked 4th with Zanardi 5th place. Of course, Zanardi went on to win the championship. But look at this year. They've already had 7 podium finishes. Vassar is 3rd in the series. Zanardi leads the championship, and together they've led 473 laps of all the racing laps we've had so far this year. And they're the only team with wins for both drivers, and that totals 5 wins now, with Zanardi looking in good shape to make a 4th win for himself this weekend. A bit of a mess down on the track there. You can see it's tearing up a bit. They had a regional NASCAR race here yesterday, which also ripped up a little bit of the track, but the patches down there, well,
yep.
Looks...
You can see there's some patches have torn up from those replacement patches there, and some corners of that seem to have ripped as well. It's pretty hot this afternoon. Track temperatures up over 130 degrees, we're told, and that's pretty warm, and certainly they're taking a pounding from these Goodyear and Firestone tires. They're plenty sticky, and there's plenty of grip through those turns. We talked about it earlier on, between 3 and 4 Gs in race conditions, and a lot of downforce, and that really does take a lot out of that asphalt.
22 laps to go then as they come across the line. Zanardi, Herta, De Ferran, then Scott Pruitt, Tony Kanaan on for a good result here. Alonso Jr. has been in for his third stop and he's now in 6th place, a good effort from Penske. They've got that car up there in spite of qualifying down in 18th position. He now lies 6th. Bobby Rahal 7th. Andre Ribeiro in 8th place, so the other Penske up there. They've had a lot of gearbox failures this year. This track pretty tough on gearboxes, so at the moment they're no doubt crossing fingers, touching wood and whatever else they need to do to hope that that gearbox holds together, but so far so good.
Yes, indeed, and you know, this track it's hard on everything. It's hard on the equipment, it's hard on the drivers. And you can just see there, between those two cars, you can see some patches out of the road, some little holes in that asphalt surface, and I think we'll see them through this turn here, perhaps on the exit of this corner.
So that's obviously going to play a part in all this as well. Zanardi waiting for the track to go green again for this race to get underway, but it's not going to happen just yet as he leads from Brian Herta. From Brian Herta, there is Richie Hearn. Now remember, Richie Hearn is down in 12th place, a lap down. He will play a part in this because Brian Herta will be desperate to get past him as quickly as possible. Now whether he'll move out of the way, what do you think, Jeremy? Is he going to just let Brian go at the restart, or is he going to fight for position?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Certainly the good news for Brian Herta perhaps is that I'm sure he'll be on the road, on the radio. His crew will be having a word with Richie Hearn's crew, with John Della Penna, and he was saying, please move out of the way and let me past. The good news is for Hearn in that case that there is not another lap car immediately behind him, so the next car behind Hearn, I should say, in the race is there, the yellow car of Art Meyer, who is 5 or 6 cars back down the train of cars. So Hearn doesn't at least have to worry about losing another position. He wants to make sure he doesn't lose any more. He wants to finish his 12th. He wants the PPG Cup point. But I think he will be able to let Herta pass and let these two get on with the race. I think he'd probably quite enjoy watching it. You know, you never know, he might pick up a couple of places himself.
He might do, yes, if it all goes a bit wrong for the race leaders. There is Scott Pruitt lying in 4th place in the silver and black Vistion car. 4th for him at the moment. Tony Kanaan is in 5th place. There's a couple of cars there. You can see Vitolo and Meyer between Scott Pruitt and Tony Kanaan. Then Alonso Jr. in 6th place. Rahal 7th, Ribeiro 8th, Guterman in 9th place. Then 10th place for Jimmy Vasser, 11th for Patrick Carpentier, and then that 12th place car we've already been talking about, Richie Hearn. The other runners at the moment, Arndt Meyer, Max Papis in 14th, Helio Castroneves 15th, and Alex Barron 16th. PJ Jones is still going. He is 2 laps down now after that incident. Michel Jourdain still running. He's in 18th place. Dennis Vitolo is 19th, and he is the last. No, Michael Andretti's still going. He's down in 20th place, but he's 3 laps down now. And then the other retirements that we've had so far, Dario Franchitti, the most recent, Mark Blundell, he's out of the race, Robbie Gordon went out, Adrian Fernandez, JJ Leto, Christian Fittipaldi, and right at the beginning, Greg Moore and Paul Tracy, after a highly optimistic manoeuvre from Greg Moore to move from 14th to about 6th position in one fell swoop into the first corner, mysteriously failed.
Yeah, the less said about that perhaps the better.
Here we go then, the green flag awaits Alex Zanardi, and he's on the pace immediately as they go through turns 7, 8 and 9 and tries to get away as quickly as possible.
Look at Richie Hearn holding up Brian Herta, terribly going into that corner. That's an awful move by Richie Hearn, and that has enabled Gilles de Ferran to get alongside Brian Herta, and very poor driving and very surprising driving from Richie Hearn.
Maybe he was forgetting that the race is on as soon as the green flag flies. Brian Herta's desperate to get back in a second. They're side by side. Oh, Herta's gone wide. They've hit each other, and now Scott Pruitt's into 2nd place, and it's all gone wrong as Gilles de Ferran gets back onto the track. And dear, oh dear, oh dear, Herta felt he had to fight for that second, but unfortunately it's cost them both dearly, and that means that Scott Pruitt has now taken 2nd place. There is Pruitt, and it's all changed once again. Now then, where have those two rejoined? Did Kanaan get through in that lot?
I don't know whether Kanaan did, but there is Gilles de Ferran. You know, that was a bad move by Gilles de Ferran. Brian Herta was on the outside line. He gave de Ferran plenty of room on the inside of that corner, and then coming out of the right-hander, Herta had the inside for the left-hander, and de Ferran, he's in a bad situation there. Herta drove right around the outside of him, Herta had the inside for the left-hander, and De Ferran left him no room, and he is the culprit of that, and he's also the guy who's come off worse. I have to say, I think that's fair for Gilles De Ferran and bad news for Brian Herter, who really did a great move around the outside, trying to get that position. And there is Derek Walker, Gilles De Ferran's team owner. You can see he's not very happy at all.
No, that's right. And of course, it was all started out by Richie Hearn's manoeuvre there, wasn't it? Richie Hearn. Let's see if we can hear from
the
Derek.
Next moment, total disappointment. Describe the seesaw back and forth.
Well, I mean, we had to go for it, and you know, we got the good line there, but just ran out of road on the kink round there. So you know, it's a toss of the coin when you get to that situation. Unfortunately, really, we did a great job today to get that far up.
Yeah, but how helpless do you feel when all you can do is watch this monitor and see the door being slammed on your driver?
Well, you know, it's a tough break. We tried it. Very disappointing for everybody, but you know, there'll be another time. We'll turn the tables next time out.
Forever an optimist, but I'll tell you what, I was watching the entire crew from down here, guys, and they went to the lowliest of lows in just about a second and a half.
Well, Alex Zanardi comes across the line with 17 laps to go, and he now has a 3.2-second advantage over Scott Pruitt. Herter survived that incident, and he is still there in third. Canaan there in fourth position. Alonso Jr.'s fifth, Bobby Rahal sixth, Ribeiro seventh, Guterman in eighth place, then Vassar, Carpentier, Hearn. We're just waiting for Hearn to come across the line, in fact, and then Papis up into 12th position. So it all changes again. Gilles De Ferran, the man who lost out through that, but another amazing incident down at that first festival curve. As I was saying, Jeremy, just before we heard from Derek Walker, really it was Richie Hearn that set that off in the first place. Now, he didn't really get going when Zanardi did he? But he didn't also move out of the way. And as soon as the green flag flies, that's when the race starts.
Absolutely right. I can't imagine what Richie Hearn was playing at. He seemed to slow down going through the apex of turn 9. I can't imagine what was going through his mind. If he had a problem with gear selection, admitting there isn't a lot of room to get out of the way there, but certainly he could have made life a lot easier for Brian Herter. And I think Herter was pretty unlucky. I think the pit reporter there, Jack Arud, I don't agree what he called, the way he called that incident. And I don't know whether he had a monitor to see in the pit. Probably he didn't. But as they're going into that left-hand of the second part of the festival curves, Herter had the inside line, and De Ferran tried to squeeze him and paid the price. And they both paid the price. But it was De Ferran that could have avoided that accident.
Well, Zanardi's taken advantage of it, if no one else has. He's out front with that advantage over Scott Pruitt up to 2.8 seconds. And he seems very, very comfortable there at the moment. He's just got to tick the laps remaining away. There are 16 of them to go, and then he's heading for win number 4 of the season. A remarkable performance. Remember, he took 5 wins on his way to winning the 1997 championship, and it looks as though he could be on 4 wins. And we're only just at the halfway point in the series. This is round 9 of 19, so we're just under halfway, effectively. And there is Zanardi with potentially 4 wins in the bag already. They've had a much more successful time on the ovals, of course, this year than they had in 1997. And once again, Zanardi showing that they have all the pace required on the road courses as well.
Certainly is, and Alex Zanardi, he's laughing all the way to the bank here. And you know, heard a lot of pressure on the guy. I'm going back to that incident again. There's $240,000 on the line for Brian Herter to win this race. You can't blame him for trying. And you know, his move around the outside of Gilles De Ferran on a right-hander was absolutely clean. He gave De Ferran plenty of room on the inside to make sure he had the inside line for the next part. And I think, as I'm going to say it again, I think it was Gilles De Ferran's fault. I think it's a great shame because I think he's robbed us of what would have been, or could have been, a sensational motor race.
Absolutely. So Zanardi then bouncing his way over the curves a little bit as he continues to try and stretch that advantage, or maybe just hold station. I don't think he's too worried about stretching it out that much. It has remained pretty much the same over the last couple of laps. Behind him, Pruitt and Herter. Herter the one really with the work to do, but the question is, can he close up any more to Scott Pruitt? Both of them with Ford power, so there's no advantage to be gained there. Zanardi being quite economical with his use of the road coming out of the festival curves. And as you can see from those times, Brian Herter was in fact the fastest over that previous lap. No surprise there, Herter's been fastest pretty much all weekend, taking that pole position in a brilliant performance in qualifying. Just suddenly stunned everybody with that 58.3 second lap. Franchitti came pretty close with a 58.4, but Herta really seems to like this place. He's never had a good result here in the past. It always seems to have gone wrong for him in one way or the other. His previous best qualifying was 4th, but his best finish in 4 starts here was down in 21st place, which was last season. The luck just doesn't seem to go his way. Perhaps that's the story again today.
Yeah, but he's certainly turned in some quick laps. I think it took him a couple of laps.
Here's the replay.
Look at him round the outside of there, and the older friend, you can see him turn into the corner there. And then he realised Herta's already there, and he's hit Herta. Herta has to get on the curbing. You lose all braking effect there when you're on the curbing, and he had to go straight on. And the deference authority, you can see him there, he's got the full lock on the wheel, and it's not going anywhere. And that's really a shame. There is the red car. That's of Richie Hearn, in fact, again trying to get past Brian Herta. He has a better run off the corner. Herta's taken a couple of laps to feel out the car, but I tell you what, it's going pretty quickly. 61.014 last time around, as opposed to 61.451 for Zanardi. But 3.3 seconds behind is Brian Herta, with Scott Pruitt between them, and Pruitt wants a good result as well.
Yeah, Pruitt needs a good result, doesn't he? He's had a bit of a tricky time this year so far. Last time out in Detroit, he finished in 9th. His best result of the season so far was a couple of 5th places. He was 5th at St. Louis, 5th in the season opener at Homestead as well. But it has been a difficult season for him, and really it's been his Patrick Racing teammate who's been stealing the limelight there, Adrian Fernandez. You remember, Fernandez went out early on in this race after a clash with Jimmy Vasser at this part of the track. That will affect Fernandez's hopes in the championship. Was lying in 3rd place, just 5 points behind Vasser coming into this race. And Fernandez not scoring at all today. De Ferran was in 5th place. He's not going to score today. Greg Moore in 2nd place. He's not going to score. So Zanardi really in great shape here to further extend his points lead. And everybody else behind him really just trying to get a good result, something they've all been looking for, not quite achieved so far this year. Scott Pruitt doing a fine job of keeping Brian Herta away, and last time round not a great deal of difference in the lap times, but of course Brian Herta's at the disadvantage. He's in the slipstream. He loses downforce through these critical corners here, and then that sets up the overtaking opportunity. He just can't get quite close enough coming off this one, turn number 9, to make the difference.
And of course they both have the same kind of engine. They both have the Ford Cosworth XD engine, and so pretty much parity there between these two. You just saw Alex Zanardi turn into the corner. Here is Scott Pruitt under pressure from Brian Herta, but there's a length or 2 between them and the braking, and that's not close enough for Herta to make any kind of a move.
Behind them, 4th place still for Tony Kanaan. He's dropped to about 5 seconds behind this battle. Alonso Jr. on for a reasonable result, lying in 5th position. So that's a bit of a boost to the team on a road course now. They had a 3rd place finish in Milwaukee, and a good result in Japan, of course. They finished in 2nd position. Most of their results have come through clever strategy, good race driving on the part of Alonso Jr. They still have got to find a good qualifying setup on the new car, but they do seem to be showing a little bit more race pace and, dare I say it, improved reliability as well. So there is some light at the end of the Penske tunnel, but still a few laps to complete here. They have got both cars in the top 7 as they go across the line. Still 10 laps to go here now.
Yeah, and time is running out for Brian Herta. You see him look into the inside there, but no. Pruitt, Herta certainly seems to have a better car under braking, but he can't get close enough at the end of that straightaway. And Scott Pruitt just doing a nice job, not weaving around, just taking the racing line into the corner, and that is enough to make sure that Herta has no way past him.
The driver's getting pretty tired by this stage. They've been racing for an hour and 43 minutes. The temperatures have been extremely high all afternoon. The physical stress high as well. Mistakes could be possible any time here. But at the moment, Pruitt keeping Brian Herta behind him, just controlling the pace of this race as Alex Zanardi continues up front, just about 3 seconds ahead. He's maintained that 3-second gap really over the last few laps, hasn't changed that much.
It's actually extended a little bit over the last 2 laps. It was come down as low as 2.3, having been almost 4 seconds after that incident on the first lap after the restart. And I think Zanardi certainly has the legs of these two. Shouldn't be any problems at all. I'm sure he's got enough fuel on board. And Pruitt now just driving a very, very good race to make sure that he stays ahead of Brian Herta. And really not much Herta can do about that.
No, that's right. Unless he's prepared to take a fairly major gamble and then, of course, lose a possible 3rd place finish. And with Herta's season really not having been that strong so far this year. He had a third place finish at Long Beach, but a fourth place in Rio. Apart from that, things haven't really gone his way, so to get on the podium would be a result for Team Rahal. Bobby himself lying in 6th place, so it definitely would be a step up, and perhaps they prefer to build on that sort of result as they go on to the other road courses. You can bet that Herta will be competitive at all of the road courses. We're going to places like Cleveland next up, Toronto of course as well, another track he goes well on. A number of tracks coming up in the latter part of the season, which should see him score some good results.
Absolutely, you know, he desperately wants that first victory. He's now into his 64th start here in the championship cars, and he's so frustrated he hasn't had a victory, particularly after yesterday, of course, winning his 5th pole. But it'll come, and he knows he drove a great race this afternoon, I think, and the crew should know he drove a great race this afternoon. And it was that gamble by the pit crew. Scott Remke makes the calls there, the general manager of Team Rahal, and he called Herta into the pits. And you know, on reflection, it was a bad call. And whichever way you look at it, it was a bad call, because there were no cautions between then and what turned out to be the final pit stops. So there's no question he could have been able to go the rest of the distance on just one more pit stop. He didn't need that splash and go. If there'd been any more cautions other than the one with Frank Kitty, then it was even more of a moot point. But there was definitely no doubt he didn't need that pit stop, and that is the crew that has cost him the victory on this occasion. That's a great shame. You know, when you're the leader of the race, it's awfully tough to make those calls. You have to make them in a split second. As the caution comes out, do you take the gamble to come into the pits? This occasion, it didn't work out. But Team Rahal has had a great car this weekend. Herta has driven it magnificently. It looks like a podium finish. He won't be happy because he wanted to win the race and particularly claim that Marlboro Pole bonus award. But a good result nevertheless, as you say, Ben, for Team Rahal.
Well, the pole bonus award will go up another $10,000 or $15,000, isn't it, each time they go, so it'll be up over the $250,000 mark next time around if anybody manages to win from pole position in Cleveland. That really will be an incentive.
Yeah, that'll take a bit to do it. Now that first, we're talking about the first corner here, the festival curves here at the end of the front straight, but Cleveland next week, you've got that huge wide runway, it's about 100 feet wide, and they bottle down into a second gear hairpin, and boy, that's going to be tight on the first lap in a couple of weeks' time.
It is, yes, but watch out, Alex Zanardi here, coming up to lap Dennis Vitola. Which way are you going, Dennis? Alex moves to the inside and gets past nice and safely. Still 6 laps to go here for Alex Zanardi to win for the second time on this Portland International Raceway. There is his team owner watching, Chip Ganassi, who's had so much success in recent years. They really have become the team to beat. Champions in 1996 with Jimmy Vasser, champions in 1997 with Alex Zanardi, and now looking very strong indeed for 3 championship titles in a row. Okay, we're very early in the season, but as we mentioned before, it was at this point in the season that they really started to go well last year, and you really can't bet against them getting good results in the latter half of the season. Oh, he's in trouble as well with one of the All-American racer cars. Not sure which way it's going, and really had to think about that a little bit. It was that PJ Jones again, causing a little bit of confusion. A little bit difficult to tell. Meanwhile, Scott Pruitt coming through in second.
Yeah, he gets through ahead of Dennis Vitolo, and Vitolo keeps out of the way. He didn't find, there was not much he could do there. Good move by Pruitt to squeeze through there, and Herta has to get through between turns 8 and turns 9. Now comes onto the front straight over with clean track between himself and Scott Pruitt to try and make up that lost ground.
Patrick keeping an eye on Scott Pruitt at the moment as Pruitt heads towards what will be his best finish of the season. Meanwhile, Gilles de Ferran has made his way back to the pit lane after that incident with Brian Herta that saw Gilles de Ferran go out of the race, and Brian Herta drop back behind Scott Pruitt, and Gilles de Ferran ready. Let's hear from him.
How aggressive a move was that to try to get that position from your seat?
Well, it was, you know, I thought it was a bit of a new judge maneuver there. I mean, I thought I got Brian on the inside, turning right, and he tried to get back around on my outside, turning left, but then he couldn't stop to make the left hand that came bouncing over the curbs and hit my left front wheel. It's a shame because, you know, the valve incoming Scott was running pretty good, and I thought maybe a second place was in the bag. You know, the team did a good stop in the pits. I was pushing really hard the whole afternoon. I thought definitely a second place was in my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the battle for that second place. Brian Herta's as close as ever behind Scott Pruitt, but still there's no way of getting past If you can't make it at the festival curves, it's unlikely to happen anywhere else at all. And Zanardi's gap has opened up a little bit now. It was staying at 3 seconds for a good number of laps, but Zanardi's just stretched it out a little bit now, and it's up to 5.1 seconds. So Zanardi looking, as I mentioned earlier, to take his second win on this track. His first ever CART victory came here in 1996 when he drove for Ganassi's team. Of course, Ganassi really resurrected Alex Zanardi's international racing career by signing him up for the championship. It took a little while for it all to come together, but here at Portland in 1996, Zanardi drove a storming race in spite of some rain when he stayed out on slicks, stayed on the track unlike many of the others, and he came through to record his first win. It was from pole position as well, and a great performance. It looks as though he's going to repeat that victory here today. Slightly different conditions, but nonetheless a good effort. Meanwhile, Herter and Pruitt absolutely tied together still in this battle for second.
So it's a great battle, isn't it? And oh, look at some kind of a mistake there coming off the festival curves by Scott Pruitt, and look how close Brian Herter is. But you know, you lose downforce through this long 3 apex right-hander, and it's like you're unlikely to be able to make a move there into turn 3. This left-hand turn, there's another short curving straightaway up to turn 5, and now we come onto the back straightaway. And if Herter can make a run on him here, perhaps he can get alongside. But you know, this is where the accident was with Dario Franchi and PJ Jones earlier on. It curves all the way around here, absolutely flat out through here. Now into the chicane at the end of the back straightaway. He can't make a pass there, and Herter is just going to have to tuck in behind him and hope that he can get a good run off turn 9. This is where you need to get the power down better than anybody else, better than the guy in front of you. But no, Pruitt's got a fine straight, got onto the straight perfectly, and Herter's tucked in behind there, but he's not close enough to make a move.
He's having a think about it, isn't he? He looks down the inside, but can't quite do it.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to make a move there. He was just feinting to pass. He's hoping he can sucker Pruitt into a mistake, I think, Ben there. And Pruitt's a very experienced driver, and he said, no, I don't think so. That's not for me. You can do whatever you like. I'm just driving my own race. I'm far enough ahead of you. Not a problem.
Absolutely. Well, we just heard that Andre Ribeiro has pulled off, so that's sad news after we thought both Penske's were going to finish well up in the top 10. Alonso Jr. is still running well. He's still in 5th place, but it doesn't look as though Andre Ribeiro, after he's driven a good race this afternoon, is going to be able to pick up any points. That moves Maurizio Gugelmin, therefore, up into 7th, Vassar up to 8th, Patrick Carpentier now to 9th, Andre Ribeiro being shown as 10th, but we think that that's going to change as we go around another lap. So Richie Hearn will move up, Max Papis will move up, and it'll bring Arndt Meyer into the points. The white flag waves, though, and we're on to the final lap for Alex Zanardi, and Brian Herter's chances of moving into second are rapidly running out. Is he going to be able to do anything on this last run into the festival curve? No, he's not, is the answer. Pruitt controls it beautifully, goes in quickly, but keeps it under control, and it's now down to Alex Zanardi to roll off the last part of this 2-mile track and take what will be win number 4 of the season. A brilliant performance from the Italian once again, helped by the fact that Brian Herter's team decided to take that gamble on the early stop. From then on, Alex Zanardi really hasn't looked backwards. It'll be his 12th career victory in just 41 starts. A brilliant record for the Italian, and he will be once again over the moon with this performance. The team has done a fine job, but Alex Zanardi has lapped consistently quickly here this weekend. It's going to be Zanardi for the win number 4 of the 1998 season, and he further extends his championship lead.
Flawless drive by Alex Zanardi. In this business, you take advantage of any good luck, fortune that comes your way. He had a little bit of good fortune, but that wasn't the deciding factor. He just drove a great race.
Scott Pruitt finishes second, and
look at him, he's waving to the crowd. Can I do some donuts? I think he's actually waving to the marshals. Can I do some donuts? Or to the crowd? Would you like me to do?
Oh, he stalled it. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, I suppose if you're going to stall it, you might as well do it after you've just won the race. And Chip finds that highly amusing as Alex Zanardi fails in his showmanship bid on this occasion. But the marshals are ready at hand to fire him up again, and I reckon he's going to have a proper go at it this time. Now, last time we saw this, he was doing it one-handed, wasn't he? I wonder if he's going to show off to that extent again. The wall's not far away here. Yeah, there he goes. There's a great commercial running over here, actually. It's a Honda commercial they're running at the moment on American TV, which sees a supposedly young Alex Zanardi doing his driving test in a Fiat 500. and just as he finishes off the driving test, he reverses it into a parking bay, says something about how he thought he'd passed, and then he opens the door, somebody comes along and rips off the door. So he says, well, I made the decision. I had to race a car without doors. It was lovely. Alex Zanardi, the winner. From Scott Pruitt, second. Brian Herter, third. Kanaan, Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal, the top 6. Great result for Tony Kanaan there. Gujamin seventh, ahead of Vassar, Carpentier, Hearn, Max Papis and Art Meyer doing well to get that final point in the Lola chassis. Helio Castroneves finished. So did Alex Barron, but Andre Ribeiro failed to finish, unfortunately. PJ Jones was there at the end, but a long, long way down. And a long list of retirements for all sorts of reasons, but mainly accidents, I have to say, in today's race. Alex Zanardi, the winner from the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 in Portland. So Zanardi further extends his championship lead. Greg Moore unable to score today, and as they go towards Cleveland in a few weeks' time, Zanardi will be looking to repeat another win that he had there in 1997. The Ganassi team seem unbeatable at the moment. Can anybody challenge him? You'll have to watch it with us to find out. From Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw, for now, bye-bye.